Okay, great. Welcome everyone to the Book Dash Community Shareouts number 1, our first session during this 12th Book Dash of the Turning Way. I'm going to repeat myself a little bit here for the recording, but I'm Anne Steele. I'm the community manager of the project. It's my role to help facilitate events like Book Dash. Book Dash is one of my 2 favorite weeks of the year. And we're really excited to see what y'all have been up to over the course of this week. To get started, we have a pad in the chat where folks have been checking in. And what we're going to do over the course of the next hour and 15 minutes, we're going to essentially pass the mic around to the room to learn more about what you've been up to. We're really, really excited. We've had 20 sessions over the course of the week and 5 social sessions. Folks have been up to all sorts of different things, from making memes to contributing to UNESCO open science requirements to learning more about each other's work, to collaborating on new chapters, to gathering resources for building websites, which personally I'm very excited to learn more about because I need to refresh my website and all sorts of different things. So really excited to learn more. Don't forget to sign in on the chat on our pad, and our check-in question for today is, what are you hoping to learn about at today's community shareouts? It is going to zoom by, so we'll be quick. All right, so to get us started, the first in line to share what they've been up to is Jyoti, Sebastian, and Johanna. I pass the mic on to y'all and tell us what you've been up to. And don't forget to introduce yourself.
Do you want to start, Jyoti, or how?
Yes, I can start. Should
Yes.
we also share our screen with the PR that we created? Okay, sure.
Absolutely. And maybe as a reminder, in sharing your screen, don't forget to describe what's going on in your screen, introduce yourselves as well, and give a bit more background, of course, on the work that you've been doing throughout the week for for folks watching the recording or catching up later.
Okay, I'll get started then. We all started with the idea of creating a chapter on having personal websites, on creating a personal website. So on the first day of Book Dash, which was on 4th November, we three of us, Sebastian, Johanna, and myself, we brainstormed about what all are the subsections that should go into this chapter, following which we all decided on subsections that each of us wants to work on. I'm happy that we have been able to create 2 sections. One is the landing page which Sebastian created, which describes what a personal website is, what are certain prerequisites, and what is the motivation and background around having a personal website. Following this, I created a subsection which is about the common frameworks that can be used by people to create their personal websites. So here I've given some information about what a framework is, what are the benefits of using a framework. We have also provided a popular options of popular frameworks, and we decided to divide this into 2 parts. One which is no code low code frameworks, and one which is a pro code and high code frameworks. So I've also, based on the different reviews that I received from the community, which included reviews from Kirsty, Saranjit, Ariel, and others. So based on the multiple reviews I received, I added all the suggestions in here, and I've included various options for creating a personal website. So yeah, that's about it. Sebastian, if you would like to add anything from your side, please feel free to add it.
Yeah, sure. So I am Sebastian. I am a bioinformatician, data scientist working in Copenhagen now. And it's the first time that I am contributing to the Turing Way, and it was an amazing experience. I enjoyed a lot. I learned a lot in the way. Like I was following like the Turing Way and reading it like for I don't know like 3 years ago or something, and it was on me on my to-do list like always like trying to contribute like but I was yeah, maybe later or maybe in another day, but this was the time to do it, and I was really happy to do it. So yeah, we, as Jyoti mentioned, we started this new chapter about personal websites, and for me, we can. It was really interesting, like to learn about the styling, the consistency guides, and how to contribute to the Turing Way, and also like how to work like, on a big project like the Turing Way and collaborating with people, with the pull requests and stuff like that. So I feel that I learned like so much in this week, and I am really happy for it. And also the Scribera images, like I had the idea to like create an image about the bioinformatics, and I was really happy with that. Like, and I was impressed for like the work of the artist from Scribera. It was a really nice experience also. So yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
Amazing. This is incredible work, especially for your team of new contributors. It's really incredible to see, and I know that a lot of folks will find this really to be a really useful resource. Um, as always, folks, during these community shareouts, please don't hesitate to ask any questions that you might have about the process. Maybe to get started, I'll kick us off with a question. And for me, it was really, I'd wanted to ask you both, as first-time contributors, what was the most exciting aspect of coming and contributing to your first book bash? And maybe also what was the most challenging aspect for both of you?
Yeah, I can go first, and also I'd like to add a description about myself, which Anne did ask me, but sorry, I missed it. Sharing about it. I am joining today. I'm based in India, and my description is visual description is that I'm a person, a woman joining from India. I'm wearing a red colored shirt with a blue jacket, and I'm also sharing my screen, which contains a GitHub page with the pull request that we have created, which is about creating a new, which is about starting a new chapter on personal websites within the communication guide of the Turing Way book. Now moving on to what did I find the most exciting about the Turing Way is that the first thing that I liked is that the community is really open and helpful. Um, so it was joining any of the sessions. It made me feel really warm. Um, and there were every time I shared any message, say over Slack or over Zoom, I could hear back from different people who were always ready to say reply to any query that I had, or add their review comments to the PR that I created. Also, people during the Zoom call, live Zoom calls, they were ready to answer any of the questions I had regarding the process that is followed during the entire week of Book Dash. So that was the most exciting part. The challenging as well as rewarding part that I experienced was that I came in with the intention of working on one of the good first issues, which was about adding style guides, adding color palettes to style guides. However, when I joined the very first session on 4th November, and I learned that there are other people who are willing to create a chapter on personal websites. I saw that as a good opportunity to share about to add my own experience because I have already worked on these areas. Together we could create a chapter. We could start a chapter which I wouldn't have been able to do singly. So yes, that was challenging as well as fruitful for me. So that's my experience. Thanks everyone. I can pass it to Sebastian to share about his experience.
Okay, yes. For me, yeah, the most rewarding part was, as Jyoti said, like working together on creating a new chapter. So that was really cool. Like combining the ideas from other people and not just working by myself. So that was, I think that was the thing that I liked the most. And the most challenging part, I think that is kind of related to that because in the beginning we were working independently with like our own branches and stuff like that, and then we needed to combine everything. And I haven't used that tool of GitHub or combining stuff and then like learn the procedures on the Turing way on how this works and how you can solve it. So yeah, I think that would be the most challenging part. And yeah.
Amazing. So what's next? And we know that the pull request that y'all have made is a work in progress, that it's been reviewed by a bunch of folks. Is the next step collaboration cafe? Is the next step a live merge?
Maybe I can briefly join in as like the third and definitely least active member of this group. My name is Johanna. I am a woman with shoulder-long, dirty blonde hair. I'm wearing a black sweater, and I have an office background behind me, which is big because I'm at work, and I've been at work for the entire week basically, and like juggling book dash and work. But my personal goal is definitely to finish the 2 sections that I've been working on, which didn't make it in the pull request. But yeah, I actually learned that the collaboration cafe is actually you can just continue. I didn't even realize that, like, you know. Yeah, I'm really interested in this topic, and maybe we can take it further in the collaboration coffee because we have this massive overview, like outline of sections that we want to add, which is I think very thorough, and this is just a fraction of it. So just adding more maybe is the idea.
So exciting! So exciting. Well, we'll see you in future collaboration cafes, hopefully future book batches. I'm really, really excited to see how the chapter develops. Kirsty's in the chat going, I love this chapter so much. Totally. It'll be a very, very useful resource. So excited for you all. Congratulations on some excellent work. Kidding. We got some hands, we got some congrats. Amazing way to kick us off. All right, so now we're gonna move on to the next person in our list. Next up, we have Alpe. Do you want to share your screen and introduce yourself?
Share my screen.
So the one thing that we found is that the microphone is much stronger up here. So you can sit down and swap seats with
Yeah.
you, but just this part. Is that okay? I think. Oh yeah, you can just. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. It's just
No.
we think that the microphone's inside of the bar.
Ah, okay, yeah, that's probably there.
And don't forget to turn on your camera.
Turn on my camera. Okay. Close up.
This is harder than you think.
Yeah.
It's harder than you think. Yeah.
The harder one.
First
All right, folks, just doing an audio check. Are we all right for folks online?
Oh, good. Wow.
Fantastic.
Okay. Here it is. Okay, hi everyone. Let me also open the camera. Okay. Hi everyone. So it is my first book dash, and it was an ambitious plan for the first book dash, I guess, because we want to create a new chapter, machine learning development, project design, and governance, and it's a huge topic actually because you have lots of steps in the machine learning development, and like you have lots of considerations for different stakeholders. So actually, it is not a very detailed guideline, but we wanted to give some best practices and like give some initial ideas while starting your new project about machine learning. So because in the Turing way, you can find lots of content about project design and also software development and data practices. But like with this new chapter, we can all connect these different chapters to machine learning. So if you want to start your machine learning development, because like today, like if you want to develop a project, it includes machine learning mainly. Like it has some intelligent component. Even if you don't want it, if you integrate a library, it includes with an intelligence component. So you automatically include machine learning development. So this is why I wanted to include it. And here it is our working branch. So I created a new branch, and here actually you can see also Rene. Rene is also including a new chapter about data validation, data creation, and like using this best practices in biomedical sciences. I started with some more general guideline, and she included a new use case. And here you can see our new chapter. I just want to show you the best practice, the questions I want to answer in this chapter. And here you can see the content. So checklist is here. So in this checklist file, you will see some questions. So the first question is using ML essential for this project? So it's, if you answer this question and if you say no, you can relax, because you will enjoy it. It will be a fair process. You don't have any bias coming from machine learning decision making outcomes. So if you say no, you are good to go. You can just continue your project design in the rest of the chapters. But if you say yes, you need to think about what are the goals and success metrics. So you can think it about accuracy, like performance metric, but in more general, if you want to develop a trustworthy, equitable, responsible AI, you need to think about security, privacy, fairness, reliability, robustness, all kind of components. So you need to also think about these metrics for robustness, fairness, security, privacy. So you need to select these metrics. Then what standards or guidelines? Because industry is working, academics are working on developing these new guidelines and standards for machine learning. And there are many actually good guidelines, but it's very hard to find it. Actually, it's very hard to reach, because even like if you're an independent researcher, you can't access ISO standards because they are big. You need to pay to access ISO standards, so you can access them without like paying more than 200 quid. So it is a lot. But if you are working in an organization, you mostly like have some prepaid subscription. So you're good to go. But if you're an independent researcher, it's very hard to access these guidelines actually. But still we need to check them, because people already had some guidelines. And how can I gather data that is both useful and ethical? And we have very beautiful written chapters in Turing Way. So you need to link that. And how can I train the machine learning models sustainably and maintainably? So sustainability is a concern when you're developing machine learning models, especially if you're developing large models. It requires lots of computing power, and also data storage. Even data storage requires a lot of power. And the last question is, how will I monitor the deployed model and address potential data drift? Because even if you develop sustainable, maintainable, responsible, equitable model, if your data changes, your model changes in most cases. So it can cause some potential equitable issues. So in this chapter, we are trying to summarize it, but it's still a work in progress because I include some templates, and Remy is including a new use case, but still it needs to be, it will be continuously in work in progress mode, because it is always coming, new information is always coming. And I think that is it. So if you want to contribute, the issue is still open. It's still open to contribution, and it will be probably live for the rest of its life. But at some point, we will hopefully merge it to main branch. Okay, thank you.
We're
That's
yeah.
amazing. Incredible. That's such amazing work out there. I feel like there's many questions to ask more broadly about how you transfer the resources that you already have to the Turing Way. But I'll save that question for after questions from folks in the community. So first I'll pass to Kirsty, whose hand is up.
Yeah.
As a reminder, if you want to ask a question, raise your hand virtually in the chat.
Yeah, so actually, I think we were probably, and you and I were probably thinking along the same way, because I slightly secretly, because I work at the Turing Institute, know that you had some funding to work on this. And I wonder, do you want to tell folks about the funding that you had and kind of, and actually I'll fold it in with what Anne was thinking about is sort of, because I know you've done lots of work in another GitHub repository. And so what's your thinking about kind of like, who benefits from having the information in the Turing Way as well?
Okay, and let me also share my screen again then. And I can share the other repository. So it is Equitable AI Cookbook, and it's part of our fairness monitoring project. So it's an innovative UK funded project, and we are developing monitoring tools so that you can continuously monitor fairness issues throughout the continuous integration, continuous deployment pipelines in machine learning processes. So if you include new data, if you include new models, or like if you develop some models, there are already established artifact standards, let's say, like model cards, data cards, or transparency report formats for like different algorithms. So with this monitoring tool, you will be able to fill them easily and also monitor them continuously in the machine learning development pipeline. And we have a use case here. It is using large language models in financial services. So mainly financial sentiment analysis. And so, for example, if you use financial sentiment analysis in like decision-making processes, it can impact global South and global North countries. So if you're a big company and if you're using LLMs for this kind of decision-making processes, if you have more data from global North countries, it can exclude global South, and it can like suggest investing more in global North countries and organizations coming from there. So it is our use case, but the tool will be generalizable. So I am working on that. And while working on that, I want to put all the materials into this cookbook, because I am also working in another project, Gates project, and it is mostly about digital public infrastructure. And like financial services is one part of public infrastructure, but we have more general like government services, public services. So all my research is also a broader literature review in this cookbook, and I wanted to link it to Turing Way, because like community is one thing. So because like only one part is machine learning development, like data collection. You have data owners, so like end users, data owners, machine learning developers, software developers, research enablers, all kind of stakeholders in this process. And if we link all of them, we can achieve equitable processes. Like even if we fail in software engineering, or if we fail in project design, we fail in the whole process. So this is why I want to link them all and like create a coherent view of equitable AI development from a broader perspective.
Super interesting. Do you feel that, was wondering then, in the process of building this guide, how did working with the Turing Way, which is a massive collaborative project, what was that process like in comparison? contributing to kind of a project that already exists, that already has a lot of different resources, that has many people contributing to it. What was the process or adjustment like for you?
Yeah, they are completely different process. Like in Yakut, where I put Git fast because I'm just dumping all my information on my to this repo. So there is no peer review. It's just dumping all the information there. So that like if you want to move fast, you move by yourself. If you want to move like stronger, I can't remember the exact sentence.
Yeah.
But
If you want to
there's
go fast,
Yeah.
you go alone. If you want to go far, you go
Go
together.
far. Yeah, that's the point. We need to go far now. I moved fast enough. It was a fast process. It was only like 3 months ago I started. I think 3 or 4 months ago I started this cookbook. Now we need to go far. So it's a good start, I think, the Turing way.
Amazing. What's next for you?
Working more. Only 2 words. I have another meeting.
Incredible.
After. But,
Amazing.
yeah.
Thanks so much, Alpin.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you all.
congratulations. Yeah.
I think can I just say, sorry, I just want to say that I think the project is really great. And I think what's beautiful about having the connection, which, I totally agree, there's sort of, it's like a scale, like one way of saying what you were saying is like, if you just have the cookbook alone in its little GitHub repository, it makes a sort of discoverability of it is harder, adoption is harder. So kind of building connections into the Turing way allows you to reach more people and get feedback. And so just totally agree with all of that. I think the other thing that I wanted to highlight, which is one of the reasons that I'm really excited that you've sort of been part of the Book Dash and building this contribution, is a lot of the concepts that sit underneath the machine learning pipeline and sort of how to do like the continuous appraisals. For traditional researchers, they're quite sort of, I think they fall under like software engineering sort of skills. And I think what's really great about what you're doing is, and I think it's like the really important change to make in the world as well, is that those software engineering skills are not just for making the machines talk to each other faster and more efficiently. They are there for the purpose of having a more safe, a more ethical, a more auditable system. So I think any of those links that help people to sort of see, so like my great passion is version control. Like if you version control, you can audit what's going on. And if you don't version control, everything else that's built on top of that is kind of sitting on sand. And I think the work that you're doing around continuous kind of assessment, I just think it's really, it's very much aligned with a lot of the content in the book, but what you're doing is helping people to see how it's aligned. So love it. Yeah, really love it.
Incredible. So we're gonna go to the next on our list. Thanks so much for joining us. Grab
I still have 20 minutes.
Yeah, amazing. Oh, so stick
Eat some
around.
snacks.
Yeah. All right. Next on our list, we have Richard.
Hello.
Hello.
I've forgotten what the introduction conventions are for these things because it's been a while, and I've not seen anyone because I just arrived. But yeah, so I'm Richard. I work for the Human Developmental Biology Initiative based at the Babraham Institute in Cambridge in the United Kingdom. And I've been to a few book dashes before. This time around, I've been working on, I suppose, 3 main things. One was wrapping up some contributions from the last time, where I have provided some updated definitions to the concept of open source and a number of related pieces of terminology into the glossary of the book, so people can make use of those. The sort of differences between open source and free software, and the various sort of attempts to modify those terms with things like ethical source and fair code, and the debates around those things mean that there's quite a few bits of jargon that it's worth having a nice definition for. So we've got those added into the glossary now. The other thing that I've been working on a little bit is my update to the chapter on reproducible computational environments, with a little addition on the end, talking a little bit about how to sort of compare and contrast the different strengths and weaknesses of tools for managing your reproducible computational environments, and sort of differing degrees of completeness in capturing the environment and in the transparency or verifiability of those environments. So it's all very well capturing something in a virtual machine image, but if you can't rebuild the virtual machine image, then it's not necessarily really reproducible, or at least not in a way that you can examine why it's not reproducible. And I'm also introducing in that chapter a couple of tools which make that a little easier. So adding into things like Conda and containers, the functional package managers like Nix and Geeks. That's still a work in progress PR. I have a few updates to that still to do. And then lastly, I happen to have been working on a Git workshop last week for a journal club that I run. And I had some images that I drew from that that I think are potentially useful for giving a high-level overview of Git. So I wanted to kind of solve the problem that is well captured in XKCD 1579 Git, which is that people learn about Git, that it's a beautiful graph theory model for collaborating on code, but then they just remember a few shell commands and delete their repository when anything goes wrong. So the stuff I've added there, I'd really like some feedback on from new users to Git, especially to see if my attempt at explaining sort of how it works under the hood and why it's a bit useful to understand this sort of relatively high-level version of how it works under the hood for reasoning about how to craft a Git history and how to manipulate one. So not necessarily, which commands to run, but sort of, how to, like visualize almost what Git looks like when you're running those commands, and make it a little easier to pose the right question to figure out which command you should be running. That's quick rundown of what I've been doing during Book Dash. Any questions?
Richard, we have so many questions, such as, will you be the one to explain how Git works for the rest of us?
Well, I mean, if go have a read of the build preview of my PR and tell me if I've done a half decent job of explaining it.
Do we have time? Would you share your
would you be able to
screen,
share?
Richard?
Oh yes, yeah, of course. I should share that. Let me grab my monitor.
And if it's not too difficult to multitask while you are grabbing those links and sharing your screen and walking us through your pull request, you can also tell us about how incredible your audio setup is, where you have a Family Guy character that has audio bars around it as you speak.
Oh yes, I'm camera shy when it comes to video recordings. Last couple of times it's just been a blank box, so I thought I'd jazz it up a little bit. So you have a representation of me in Family Guy art style, as Anne pointed out, with a little waveform visualizer. So as I talk, you can see that oscillating around, and in the background there are some renders of various biological things, mostly kind of molecular biology models of large large polymers of various types. Yeah.
The people who haven't been joining the Book Dash contribution sessions that Richard's been in, I think every single session someone says, Richard, I love this setup, because he's got like the coolest sort of various different camera angles and a drawing pad so that he can project up things that he's drawing, and it's extremely snazzy. And yes, this the avatar is great, but also the fabulous like sound that Richard did, I thought was just aesthetically pleasing. It is aesthetically pleasing, but it also allows Richard to see if his microphone is on or not, which I thought was very clever. But we've all really enjoyed having you share that setup with us, Richard. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then we can see the screen. Yeah.
But yeah, so you can see my screen now. So yes, the XKCD up top there kind of captures the problem I'm trying to solve, as it were. And then this is a little representation to try and explain, or introduce the concept of a hash function. So taking the hash of some files yields a seemingly random output of fixed length. And then you can put those into a tree where you take the output of one hash and you put it into the thing that you're hashing in the next one. So you have this tree relationship, which is the underlying data structure in Git. And it means that any commit, which is what one of these sort of hash functions in this tree represents, is always knows what its parent is. So you can sort of take any random collection of these things and always reassemble them. So when it comes to working in a distributed graph fashion, you always know where you diverged in the history of the project. And then later on, this is the most complicated of the diagrams I have. So the alt text for this is a bit lengthy. I think I read it out the other day. But yes, this is an explanation of what sort of branches and tags and checking out a particular point in a Git history is. So I've tried to represent branches as sort of labels that are attached to the leaves of a tree in Git history, right? So they're sort of loosely attached. So they're always at the tip of a branch. So if you add a new commit, you could sort of slide the label up and it's always there. Whereas a tag is something which is anchored to a particular or locked in the visual metaphor here to a particular commit. And then the act of checking out a particular part of the history is your working directory in which you've cloned your Git repository is kind of like a window that you can slide over the tree. So if you check out a particular branch, you have a window that will continue to slide as you add commits to it. But if you check out a particular point in history with either a tag or a particular commit hash value, then you get kind of a read-only, the headless state that you end up in if you check out an old Git commit. And then there's a little bit up the top right there explaining the process of staging changes. So you sort of picking stuff that you want to include in your next commit. And the text surrounding this kind of talks about Git not necessarily as like a thing that you're doing autosave. It's not just capturing random changes that you've made, but rather it's a tool for authoring a history, right? You want to create a narrative account of the changes that occurred in your project. So where you're writing a commit, it's a sort of a more deliberate act than just capturing the stuff which changed, right? You want it to be a sensible unit of change. So it's useful to be able to stage things. I also briefly introduced the concept of like stashing and work trees so that you can deal with the problem of I have some changes that I don't yet want to commit. So, how can I have a second window on my tree, which is work trees, or how can I, clear the state of my working directory so I can go somewhere else for a little while, which is stashing. I'd be very open to feedback on and trying to make this more broadly accessible. But that's mostly what I have so far. There's a tiny bit down here that's not quite finished on explaining differences in merges. Yes, Kirsty.
Oh yeah, so what I was gonna verbalize is that back in the day, at the beginning of the Turing Way project, there was a sort of ideological, I don't know if it was a split, but it was definitely like there were different perspectives on the best way to teach Git and GitHub. And there's two camps basically. There's a camp that really sticks with the XKCD that just says like just be able to do it. Like you don't have to worry about how everything works, just be able to do it. And so that's generally been the kind of angle that we took. But what I really like about this is one of the conversations that we've been having in the community in the run up to the book dash and sort of in various places is how do you transition people from kind of like a beginner level of Git and GitHub to a bit more of a sort of, a medium, like, in a sort of intermediate stage. You don't even really have to get all the way to like quote unquote advanced stage, but it is important to get to kind of an intermediate stage. And the context for those conversations was how do we set people up to be able to go and contribute to other open source projects? And we're a bit more sort of gentle with our norms around Git than other open source projects might be. For like, we can defend our reasons and they can defend their reasons. So I don't want that to sound shady in any way. But what I really like about contributing within is that it's actually allowing people who had the fun dopamine hit of actually being able to merge a pull request and use Git, but giving them now a section in the book that allows them to actually understand what is going on under the hood. And I think that may not be the section that everyone wants to read. There might be some people who are just like pretty happy with it works. I don't need to know exactly why, but it definitely feels really valuable for people who do want to step up that understanding and have a deeper kind of a deeper mental model. So really, really
thank
great.
you. Yeah, I'm certainly open to moving it to somewhere else if you think this is not the right location in the book for it. But I sort of tried to emphasize that the next sections give you like the specific blow by blow for how to get stuff done. But this is just here for if you want to, get a picture of it before you delve into that.
Yeah. I think I'll if I have time, I'm not going to comment in a way that blocks this because I want other people to feed in. But if I have time, I'll definitely have a look because I think I'll have fewer comments on the content of the chapter and more around which other sub-chapters point to it in what way. And I think that'll be the really great value is that there's sort of learning pathways that people take.
Yes. Yeah, that would be a valuable feature.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Amazing. So we have Sanjit in the chat saying that she opened an issue that was also flagged in the Slack channel about Git hygiene at an intermediate level, and maybe that could be a bridge for folks that are interested in learning more.
Yes, I saw that, and I was going to tag it in my PR because I thought it would be potentially relevant because the Git hygiene bit I think is touched on a little bit in the opening paragraph of this section.
Do any folks have any questions for Richard? Richard, I'll definitely be poring over anything that will help me with cherry picking commits because there's nothing, speaking of dopamine hits, there's nothing like the dopamine hit of realizing that you've axed out that million, committed 200 files to the repository and then have to figure out what you did.
Yeah, it's a tiny bit of that in the slightly unfinished section at the end. And if you're not using the lazy Git TUI, I really recommend that as an experience for doing cherry picking. So if you have a terminal, then like it makes it much easier to do terminal cherry picking than anything else I've used.
Definitely a great thing to add to the chapter. All right, so we're right now at 11:54 UK time, which means that we have a little more or less 5 minutes before the hour. We know that some folks might have to drop off before the end of the hour. So if we could, for our own documentation too, maybe Richard, if you'd be able to stop sharing your screen and we'd be able to take a collective photo, then we'll move on to the last, I believe there are 4 folks, 5 folks, oh my gosh, left before the end of this share out. So we're gonna be really quick with this photo and then we'll keep moving on. Okay, so if folks feel comfortable with your video turned on, if everyone in the physical room is joined, great. You don't have to have your video on if you don't want to, but it'd be great for our documentation. And of course, it is the 12th book dash of the Turing Way, and we always love to have a photo of all of us together. All right, so I'm gonna count down from 3 here. I always wish that me doing something like screenshot or a merge, that there would be some kind of sound effect, but there never really is. So we have to make the sound effect. Okay, so I'm gonna count down from 3. 3, 2, 1. Get a little wave. Amazing. Thanks, folks. Yeah.
Present.
Cool. All right. So we're going to be zooming through. All right. So next on our list is Kat. Kat will pass.
I was just going to say, I'm going to be here this afternoon too. I don't know if you'd rather, I can save mine.
Oh, amazing. Okay. Yeah, you'll kick off session number 2. All right. Great job.
Thanks.
All right. Next on our list, we have Emma. We could pass to you.
Hello, everybody. So here this afternoon, but I thought then I can kind of relax you know, eat some nice dinner, something like that, while we're doing the evening session in UK time. What have I been doing this week? So I've been running around virtually running around doing all sorts of things, as being on the Book Dash planning committee means or needs. So I was mostly here on a Monday, and I had a really good starting session with Lena, and we started chatting about research community managers and our personal stories. So I really wanted to get that finished, but I have not. But at least I've had a chat with Lena, and we've both done a bit of co-working on writing our personal stories, and we can always move forward with those in the next Book Dash, because we'll probably both be there as well. So that will be my following on task. But I think the two things I wanted to highlight were that on Monday we had an amazing image-a-thon, which is kind of becoming a standard thing on Book Dash Mondays, where we add this lovely Scriberia images you can see behind me to the book. And so we actually managed to add 3 images, but actually this year we were concentrating on updating and improving our alt text of the images. And I had a bit of a look. I don't think this is all of them, but I think we improved 19 alt text of images, which I think is really good going. So that was amazing. I do think there's probably more, because I don't think everyone put all of their links into their PRs into the issue, but that was just the ones that were there. So probably 19 plus alt text images, alt text improved images, which is brilliant. And then yesterday, I ran a session on the UNESCO draft principles for open science monitoring. We had a really good group of people in that session. We had some really great discussions. And in the notes, I have linked our discussion document and also the draft principles. So we've got lots of notes in there. It's very messy, so I apologize for that, because I need some time to actually make it make sense, actually, because we were too busy chatting and I wasn't writing down enough. So I need to go back and make it actually make sense to us. But the thing to flag and might ask is that we're going to, the reason we did the chat yesterday is because we actually want to submit our own suggestions for this consultation on the these UNESCO draft principles for open science monitoring. So in our next collaboration cafe on the 20th of November, hopefully I've got the date right, I think I have, please do come along and we'll have a chat more about this, and we'll kind of tidy up our submission and kind of get maybe some themes going so that we can actually get it submitting, which I think is the end of November. So we've still got a bit more days after that. So yeah, please come along to the next collaboration cafe and we can work on that together. So thanks. Yes, thank you for all putting nice things in the chat.
Sorry.
You can't.
Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, we're all just going to be a continual echo of amazing after every
Brilliant.
contribution throughout the week. Very, very cool. And at the invitation to join the next collaboration on the 20th of November, we extend to all of you. Something that's really key about Book Dash is that so often folks come with a project that they want to work on throughout the week that becomes a multi-Book Dash project where they start during one and then they join the next one in the next year for other folks. And then they continue to join more Book Dashes in the next year, and it becomes like a 4 Book Dash project where we get the live merge on the end together. It can also be, starts with Book Dash, but then continues with collaboration cafes where folks are able to join in the months beforehand with the ritual that we have on the 1st and 3rd Wednesday of every month. And collaboration cafes, as we call them, are almost like smaller Book Dashes, where similar to Book Dash, folks are kind of coming in from across the community, newcomers, veteran contributors, to work on all sorts of things. And to see that continuity with contributing to the UNESCO Open Science Principles is all a part of the fun. So we really, really invite you to join that November 20th Collaboration Cafe. Save it in your calendar. All right, so any questions, folks, from the community for y'all? guess I can kick us off with a question. Amazing. Maybe something, this is a bit of a personal question as a community manager. I was really curious what the conversation with Lena was like and how that translating the process of community management into materials for the Sharing Way has been like for you and for you then.
That's interesting. So I think the more that we talk to each other as community managers, the more we we realize we have the same struggles and challenges that we all face with kind of like institutional take up of these types of coordination roles, things like that. So yeah, I think we were trying to sort of, I think it's really lovely as well to reflect on like how we got into these types of roles, because I think they're roles that they're quite complex roles. They require people with quite a lot of different skills and experience. And so I think that was really nice to kind of reflect on. What did you think as well, Lena? I can see you nodding.
Yeah, I started to write, but well, I guess yeah, we kind of both noticed this, you know, in between research and support. I guess you much more than me, because you are actually researchers in the Turing Way, while I work for the library. So I don't really have this
yeah,
relation.
I forgot. Sorry,
But,
Lena.
no, but yeah, I think also yeah, this kind of journey that brings you there, because if you just start explaining what you do, it all feels very simple. You know, you organize things, you know, you bring people together. But yeah, that like there are many things you've done on the way to get there, where you got the experience you need to feel, you know, more or less confident in this role.
Yeah, I think we did have a conversation that Lena reminded me of there about this distinction between researchers and sort of professional services, support services, and that being quite a challenge at the moment for a lot of these research infrastructure roles, and something that, yeah, we wanted to be included in there as one of the challenges. Yeah. Thanks, Sam.
Having a documentation of a personal story, it feels like something that we could send out to everyone's to understand what the personal story or career journey for all folks like us has been, because especially in research infrastructure roles, as we all know, for folks that work in and around research, that may be researchers, being able to understand how, yes, our stories may be different, but also very similar. We do a lot for helping other folks understand how they can get in the space too. And of course, thank you so much for organizing the social sessions as well. What's now becoming an annual, biannual tradition, our Alt-Text workshop on Mondays, improving the Alt-Text that we have, that's incredible, as well as the UNESCO contribution session. And again, join the Collaboration Cafe on the 20th of November. Okay, I have to zoom through, folks, because we have T-minus 25 minutes, and I'm like, whoa, we got a lot to get through. So next up, we have Fran, Alexandra, and Sophie. We'll pass on to you all.
Fran, would you like to come here to the? Yeah.
Fran is coming over to the hot seat.
Hi everyone.
I think I'll share the screen.
Can you, just to do an audio check, can you all hear us all right online? Great.
Yeah. So this week, well, first of all, like it's been really cool seeing what everyone's been up to, and the bar is quite high. So I feel like we're gonna bring down the bar a little bit. But so what we've been doing this week, just for context, the previous book dash, we created a new subchapter within the collaboration guide, and within the collaboration guide there's a chapter for academic industry collaboration. So we contributed a new subchapter on
case studies and best practices in academic industry collaboration. And the goal of this subchapter was to help people, let's call it researchers or people from industry, to navigate open science discussions when in these contexts of industry academia collaboration. So this chapter is divided into two parts. There is first of all a library of case studies on these academic industry collaboration, and then a library of existing resources on the web. And so we wanted to expand on this library of case studies. We currently have 3 in there, but as the discussion that we had on the previous book dash, we had an idea of running something called a case study writing sprint, where we would get a lot of people from all kind of places that had taken part in some sort of some sort of form of industry academic collaboration, and try to navigate these open science discussions, so then we could like start building up on this building up this library. But to do that, we needed to create some sort of template to have a generic way of reporting these case studies. So that's been the key topic of this week. And our goal was ideally to have a pull request, but we found out that we had like so many basic questions that we had to address around building this case study template, that this week is probably just led to even more questions that we need to address. So we felt it was a bit too premature to create a pull request, but we do have if I can find it. Oh, there you go. We have an issue that we have been contributing to on industry academia collaboration case study template. And we have a HackMD where we have so far divided the case study template into 2 sections. One on that deals with the description of what the collaboration is or was about, and then another one which is the reflection section where the participants can then contribute towards the thoughts on how the collaboration went and what went well, what didn't go well. So that's how we're doing. You please do check out the HackMD, or if you think you have something interesting to share. We do have some specific request in this from you in this context, which is, first of all, if you think you have any experiences that you would like to share or contribute to this library, please do reach out to us in the context of, again, trying to navigate like how do we establish open science when industry wants to have their competitive advantage and everything, but also we want to make our science available to everyone. But also, if another topic that we were discussing is what collaborations are in scope and which ones aren't, because there's like 50 different types and 50 different ways in which or probably even more in which we can establish collaborations, and maybe for the context of the Turing Way we want to be very focused on what we do. So this will be another one that will be really useful to get thoughts on. Ale, you also were having a chat with Sophie on one more topic, which
yes. I'm just going to introduce myself very briefly. I am Alexandra. I am freckle face with a little, how do you say this?
Brave.
Brave. I am part of the planning committee for the book dash, and this is my 4th book dash. It's always a pleasure to come to Shoutouts. It's my favorite part of the book dash, also being in person with people. I was feeling a little bit guilty this morning because normally I interact a lot during the book dash week, and for the first time in 4 times, I haven't done much. So I apologize for that. But in any case, it's been fantastic to listen to all these contributions, and we feel energized to keep on contributing, which is great. Sophie, who we have been working together about this chapter, cannot be here today, but we had a good discussion about templates and how, I mean, what differentiates a case study from a blog post. So we put a question in the Ask Away Slack channel. So if you want to go to that conversation, we might open an issue too, because I think like we have a lot of I don't know, I'm not agree in many things, and we know that we are not. I don't know, Kirsty, how do you say it normally? We are opinionated. We're opinionated, or
I think the tagline is that we're a lightly opinionated guide, and the joke is that has anyone met me? Like, but as a group, we aim to be lightly opinionated.
So yeah, we're trying to make sure that we can add some guidelines on case studies, case study writing templates. I have the pleasure of working with a group of independent scientific advisors that are all the time advising on consulting SMEs, and we want to capture those case studies in the libraries as well. So if you, as Sven said, if you have the opportunity to also share your experiences working in collaborations, there are so many ways that academia and industry can collaborate, that we want to make sure that we can at least feature a couple of examples so people can have their ideas. So thank you very much, and see you in the next community call on the 20th of November.
We'll just repeat that after everyone sharing. Incredible! Okay, so in the interest of time, we're gonna have to move forward. Please ask and put any questions you have in the chat. Please contribute your experience and chat with Fran or with Alex or with Sophie to contribute to their work. So happy to see it. Really exciting stuff. Let's move on to the next person on our list, which is Andres.
Hi, everybody. I forgot how was the introduction, but yeah, I'm wearing a black sweater in a white background with probably a small image of a cascade in a waterfall in the background. Yeah, I can talk about the most important of this week for me. That was one of the PRs related with citations, how and why to cite other people's work. In the book, there was some information about your own work, but not about others' works. So I was working on that, and I'm still working on that. There are some issues there. But I just want to highlight the other things that I did, because I was in the 2 social sessions with Emma, and they were amazing. It was pretty good to look at the images and also the discussions of the UNESCO session. Yeah, that was pretty good. Yeah, and lastly, well, in the alt images, I had 2 images, so I was happy. That was my first pull request and merge. So for me, that was a success because it was the first day, so perfect. And yesterday, yeah, I finished with the Scriberia session on trying to figure out how to make an image about persistent identifiers, how to make them important in the research environment. And I think from that side, for me, also clarify some things of what I want to say in an image. And at the end, it turns out of, yeah, trying to show that the persistent identifiers are the kind of, in a way, building bridges between researchers, institutes, and their research outputs. So that's something that I also took from yesterday. But yeah, it has been an amazing week. So I hope I can finish the pull request and then see what other options are, because yeah, at the very beginning I have so many ideas, but I think I only have to focus in a few of them because of my time, unfortunately. You're muted.
Sorry, we forgot our job. We forgot our job. Sorry.
It's funny because it's almost, if anyone else sends voice notes, you know, when you accidentally don't record and you have to record it again and like mimic the same enthusiasm, it feels very disingenuous. So, but the enthusiasm is real. So exciting. I'm so glad you enjoyed all of the Scriberia sessions, the social sessions, being in person, being remote. You're very free to share your screen if you would like to show us some of the writing that you've done. You're welcome to do that. But I think the key question for all of us is that, do you have an ask for us to help you with the next steps in chapters that you've been writing, thinking through the next Scriberia image you'll make, anything you'd like to ask from us?
Well, that's a good question. No, I think I have ideas that I just want to put in issues, but I just need to clarify also my mind, because I also saw some issues about research, reproducibility as an spectrum. I also have the same image, but for example, for metadata to documentation, is a spectrum between metadata and documentation. But yeah, just if someone is interested into that part, I think I will be interested in discuss how to create an issue on, so write down what is actually what we could do for the book in those cases.
Well, if you'd like to join the Collaboration Cafe on the 20th of November, that could be a perfect place to do that.
I know, unfortunately, I'm on vacation, so.
Oh, okay. Vacation is about maybe beginning of December. Beginning of January.
Yeah, and something that I forgot to tell, because it was in the list. I was in person in Delft. So thank you, Esther, as well. That was amazing.
Please, is there any highlight that you'd like to share from the Delft Hub?
Oh yeah, at the very beginning of the session, we had a very interesting discussion about what Neha has been working on their Shiny app for images. And yeah, pretty interesting of all the things that you can do when you discuss in person.
Amazing. And all the snacks that you can share too, of course. Great. Congrats, Andres. So excited. We're gonna keep moving, and I just noted we have actually 2 more, because Kat's train is actually going to be at the same time as the second session. So we're gonna keep zooming. But Esther, we'll pass to you, sharing on behalf of the Delft Hub.
Yay. I am going to add to the list of people who feel like they didn't do enough. Because I literally just did a little tiny bit on how can you host a local hub, but then I also hosted a local hub, so I feel like I might be able to get away with that.
Yeah, Esther, we've had this conversation multiple times.
I know.
Local hub is awesome.
And so Jim kindly reviewed my little blob of what can you consider when organizing a local hub. But this is also very much TU Delft focus, because it's basically my experience with hosting a local hub. So my ask would be, if anyone who has been involved in the past with hosting a local hub can actually have a look at that, make it a little bit less Esther/TU Delft focused if that is needed. And I forgot to introduce myself. So I'm Esther Plomp. I'm a data steward at the Delft University of Technology for now. I'm a white woman in my, is it mid-30s? Is 34, is that mid-30s? With blonde hair. And at Delft, I organized a local hub, and I also tried to get some stuff in. So this is literally all the stuff that I did. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. But also to maybe give you a little bit of an overview of what we did at our local hub, apart from eating all of the snacks and drinking all of the teas, and having pie, because the Turingway is 5 years old. So they allowed for pie reservations, which is my personal highlight. Sorry. No, my personal highlight was, of course, that people joined the hub and made it a success. And that we had 4 times first contributors who actually went through all of the process of merging a PR. So I was very, very proud of that. So what we worked on, we, as Andres mentioned, the citing research objects chapter, the image gallery, how do you back up data? We had Lena working on the funding initiatives information, adding alt text to images. Carlos was very busy with software packaging, documentation, data. I say data management plan, but it's a software management plan. So yes, we need that information in there so that I don't mix it up. So if you're particularly if you're interested in the software management plans, yeah, there's an issue open. I'll also paste it in the notes. And we had Tanya working on citizen science, and I'm not naming everyone, but all of their names are in the notes. And yeah, so basically other people did loads of work. And someone added this in the notes. A very important thing that we did. We tested Jim's latest Home Assistant light automation thing by clicking on the stars of the Turing Wave repositories a couple of times so that the lights in his room went bling, 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 bling. So yeah, that might have been like a couple of people at the Delft Hub. Sorry, Jim, you kind of asked for it. Sorry. We had fun. Yeah, I think that's it.
Amazing, amazing. You can hear all the applause coming your way. There are so many questions. One, is there any form of documentation of the blinking lights? Because we need to send that over to Jim stat because he wasn't able to come to this share.
He put a video somewhere.
Yeah.
He put a video on Mastodon for sure. I feel like he might have shared it on Slack. But yeah, is it on the Turing Slack one? It's on. I think he linked to it on Mastodon. So yeah,
amazing. Two, what was it like for you all in the Delft Hub, working with new contributors, setting up pull requests and issues, joining the remote sessions and the social sessions? What was that experience like for you all, and especially for the newcomers? I know that you're a veteran, Esther, in organizing the Delft Hub, organizing hubs all across the Netherlands, really. But what was it like this time around? Were there distinctions or differences in how you organize?
So if you want a first-time perspective, better ask Andres, because this was the second time that we organized it for Delft, and I think it was actually quite similar, so not a lot of differences. I think it was the first time that we joined the full social session, so that was a bit interesting to remember that there was a social session going on, so I had to keep time a little bit more. And two, it was nice to to be facilitated around that, but then to also be in person and so we actually had a very serious discussion about poor management and all of these things with budget cuts going around in the Netherlands. So it was actually a very nice low barrier to entry discussion about that. So that was very nice. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. It was very nice.
You have to mention that we eat a lot thanks to Open Science NL.
That is true. So Open Science NL, and I'm not obliged at all to say that, but Open Science NL provided us with the food that we had during the event. So thank you, Open Science NL and NWO, for sponsoring us. Thank you. You are muted.
Oh, there's that. I was saying this is the point where you say, please like and subscribe.
If you're at a Dutch-based institute, the funding is still open, so go ask for more money. Host the next year Delft. No, Dutch Book Dash, because I'm not gonna host the next Book Dash in the Netherlands, because that's not gonna happen. Sorry.
Well, actually, the next Book Dash will be taking place in Aruba. That is what we decided.
Yes, because I can actually ask NWO/Open Science NL for the funding because it's part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. So who knows? But it definitely will not be a Dutch or the Netherlands Book Dash next time.
Nice.
Amazing. Okay, definitely don't forget, Esther, if you can, and we'll aim to add the list of pull requests, issues, things that folks can review. If any of those folks need any additional help in reviewing pull requests or adding to issues, please add that list there, or we can tag it in the Slack channel, and then can make sure to say, have them join the 20th of November at the Collaboration Cafe. All right, so very last, but absolutely not least, we're going back to Kat for the last 4 minutes of our first share out.
Shall I sit down there somewhere?
Yes.
Oh yeah, Fran, wiggle.
Thank you so much again, Esther, for organizing the Delft Hub. As Emma said in the chat, it really is so much work, and as always, we really appreciate everything that you do.
Cool. So I will be very quick, but I'm Kat. I'm a research data scientist at the Turing. So we've been working on a new chapter on recruitment strategies to attract diverse job applicants. So I'm just sharing my screen, which is issue 3763, if you want to have a look. But this is something that had come out of discussions I've been having with other teams at Turing prior to the book dash. So yeah, a bit of background is came out from a couple of different teams discussing their best practices, and then we were kind of like, why are we discussing this? This should be open somewhere, and then other teams can contribute to it and we can learn from them. So we decided this should go in the Turing way. That makes sense. So Cass has kindly opened this issue. I think so. A lot of people have been working on this draft who all seem to be on holiday this week. So, but yeah, this isn't just my work. So we've got the draft as well here. So this is just a draft. There's a couple of different people have contributed. We've got different teams involved. So people from Turing Way, also somebody from HR, myself in research as well. So we've just gone through and kind of tried to discuss why do you want diversity? What's so good about it? So we've opened with that, and then just gone through how to write a good job advert, some recommendations there as well. But this is like a behemoth of a topic. So this is just the start. We've not got as far as pull requests or anything like that yet. So yeah, I mean, that's mostly it. I think next steps is probably to keep working on this. Maybe we'll do a pull request on like just the job advert side of things, and then we can keep adding to it once ideas can come together. But yeah, the other really nice thing was the Scriberia slot, because I think I sat down with the artist who said, what do you want to, what's your idea? And I was kind of like, I don't really know. And then just rambled for 10 minutes. And then they came up with this really amazing sketch about why diversity is really important in decision making. And I think even just the process itself kind of highlighted why diversity is so good in decision making. It was just a really, really nice thing as well. So yeah, really good book dash. Would recommend. That's it.
Amazing. Wow. I mean, there are absolutely, as always, so many questions about the process. Like for you, what was it like to work with so many different folks and thinking about what recruitment strategies look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think I found that really important because I've come to this from I come from a very technical side of things. So it's really nice to get different perspectives and different people's experiences as well, because I mean, I'm one of the more junior members in our team, so I've not had as much experience as well. So it's really nice to hear from other points of view and other roles as well, how they advertise. And yeah, it's been really good. It's been very eye-opening as well. Learned a lot. So yeah, for sure.
Do you have an ask for folks in the community or next steps that y'all are planning?
Yes, I think asks is probably that you're welcome to contribute to the document and the issue as well. If anyone's got any specific experiences or tips that they think would be really helpful to share, that would be very welcome for sure. Yeah, next steps. I don't know. I'll need to feedback to everyone once they're back from their holidays. But probably, I don't know, I imagine Collaboration Cafe, that kind of things.
Definitely. It's almost like folks are joining 20th of November.
Yeah. Can I just, I know we're literally at time, but you know, having like that diverse team of people, I know you're representing them today, but you know, it's kind of the same thing that I said to Alpe before of like the real success of the Turing Way is having people as a convening space. And then, you know, someone from HR, there's a huge amount of expertise in HR, but they don't usually see how their work relates to open science and they don't see how it fits in.
I actually think about why, feel like from my perspective, it was really nice to add why I applied for a certain job and like what makes it attractive from the outside, whereas HR is looking at it from the inside. So it's like, it's really nice.
And seeing it from those different perspectives. It's diversity all the way down. Like, but it's a really great contribution. Really exciting.
Cool. Amazing. All right, folks. We are right on the dot at time. Thank you so much for joining this first share out of the day. We have one more planned for this afternoon, 5 p.m. London time. We hope to see you there for more sharing, for more celebrations. Thank you so much to everyone who shared. We're so excited about everything that you've been working on, for all the conversations that you had, for all the writing that you did together, for all the collaborating you did together. We hope that it continues long after this event. We're so glad to have you. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you in, 4.5 hours time.
And I just want to quickly say a huge thank you to Anne and to Lele, who coordinated and hosted the London Hub. It's been really wonderful. And I'm going to come in on one of the days, but they navigated train strikes, tube strikes. No, there isn't a tube strike. People sort of arriving from various different locations, and like, thank you so much. It's been really fantastic. Super appreciate it.
Thanks all. Thank you so much. Bye everyone. Bye.